In it here now, what are you gonna do now? I'm gonna bid on here now. Who bid $500,000 bid?
Welcome to the Legacy of Agriculture. This program will explore the past, present, and future of agriculture. We'll look at the people, products, and events that have formed its history. And now, with today's guest, your host, Chris Bair.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Chris Bair, your host of the Legacy of Agriculture. Thank you for joining us on WNX Radio. If you've missed any of our shows in the past, you can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, and now YouTube, or you can go to the legacyofagriculture.com website, and you can pick up any of our shows there and read all about the legacy of agriculture. Today, I'm doing something new. I don't think I've done a show in the past where I've gone solo and not had a guest on, but about a year ago, I was in a client shop and we were visiting, and he had some machinery that he wanted to sell, and we had sold 160 acres of pasture ground with him. And I noticed clear off in the corner of his shop, he had one of those empty watermelon pallets that were clear full of old farm publications that dated from 1925 clear up until the mid 70s. And I started looking through some of those newspapers, and I thought there is some really, really interesting articles and very interesting marketing campaigns from all kinds of manufacturers. There was interesting articles about farming and farmers and how they were farming back in the day. And so I picked up just a handful of the papers I was going through, and I picked up a newspaper from January 21st, 1956 called The Farmer. And this was the North and South Dakota edition, January 21st of 1956. And right on the front of this newspaper was a picture of a great big rat with an X across him. And the article said, "No more rats now." And it was a story about a chemical called warfarin that was a proven rat killer in the 1950s. And I thought, that's just kind of a bizarre article. I don't think we'd ever see that type of an article in a publication. And so I started diving into it, and I actually read the article, and it was very interesting about the development of rodent poison that became very commonly used in the 1950s, and even through up today, they use some of these same forms. And the way this rodent control poison was developed was as 20 years prior, in the 1930s, there was a phenomenon going on with farmers and producers and livestock men and women, that they didn't understand what was happening, and cattle were mysteriously dying. And there was a professor at the University of Wisconsin by the name of Dr. Carl Paul Link that discovered that cattle in the 30s that were eating sweet clover hay that was partially decaying emitted a chemical or a poison that when ingested by cattle over a 3, 4, 5 day period of time became fatal for the cattle. And they couldn't figure out why this was happening, but they discovered that in this rotting sweet clover, that the cattle absolutely loved it, and they kept coming back and kept coming back and kept coming back and eating this clover, but that the chemical that was emitted eventually was terminal for the cattle. And so fast forward 20 years later, and actually the article also talked about it became later on used as a medication for people that needed to have blood thinners. And I'm not a medical professional, so I don't know exactly what would have to be going on in your body that you would need a blood thinner. But they started to use this as blood thinners and saving people's lives as a result of this event that happened with cattle in the 1930s. Now, I know it's kind of morbid to think that that a blood thinner is similar to what they use for rodent control, but in a way, in a rough, crude way back in the mid 1900s, this was a fact. And so in the 1950s, there was another professor that was tasked with trying to help farmers and ranchers get control of the massive rodent problem that was going on in the 1950s. And he had discovered that this chemical that was emitted, that had been developed as blood thinners for humans, that if they use this same chemical and they put it and they mixed it with cereal, and they placed it in a bait box and put it in what they call rat runways, that the rats would come in and eat the cereal because the cereal was very palatable. It was very good. They liked it, and they'd keep coming back for more. And then oftentimes, or every time, I will say, that they consumed enough of it that eventually the rats would run off and die, and began to control some of the terrible rodent problems that they had in the 50s. It became so popular on the farms that cities that were having trouble controlling rodents in sewers and in dumps and in places where there was a lot of feed and a lot of water for rodents, they were able to control those rodents and manage those rodent populations. Became very popular. But the other thing that was really interesting about this article is that this cereal and cornmeal that they mixed with this chemical prevented the blood from clotting in these rats, in these rodents, and then they would eventually die. But they had a problem in the fact that if you have open bait, that oftentimes it was dangerous to other animals. So what they do is they created bait boxes, and inside these bait boxes, they would put the chemical mixed in with the cereal or cornmeal, and also a water supply, because this chemical that was being ingested created an immense thirst, and it actually activated the chemical. It acted faster in the body in the anti-clotting process, and it worked very well. And it became so popular that, and I got a real kick out of this, is in this article, and I wish I could show you on the radio, but I can't. But there's a picture of an FFA group that in Lake Mills, Wisconsin, that carried on a rat control campaign. Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation has project kits, which were bait stations, as we call them today, which some 2,000 FFA and 4-H club groups now use each year in carrying on community-wide warfaring baiting campaigns. On the next page, it showed a picture of Boy Scouts, 6 Boy Scouts in Holiday, North Dakota, that were making bait stations out of old boxes, placed them in rat runways. Warfin was a good safety record, but should be undercover. And that was the purpose of creating the bait boxes. It was a very, very interesting article that was written back in 1956. I keep forgetting we're in a different century. Hey folks, we're coming down to the end of our first segment of the Legacy of Agriculture. In our second segment, we're going to talk about some of the advertising campaigns that are also in this publication. I sure hope you're enjoying the show. Don't forget, on Monday, June 16th, we're having a huge sale at our Southern Dakota facility for a complete listing of all the items that we're going to be selling. Go to our website at pifers.com. That's PIFERS.com, or simply give us a call, 605-836-2277. Pifers, nobody does it better.
Hey, this is Jasmine at Pifers Auction, Realty, and Land Management. Pifers offers multiple ways to bid and buy at our equipment and land auctions. You can bid online, in person, or place pre-bids before the sale even starts. By providing convenient bidding platforms, we make sure that you can buy the items or parcels you want the way you want to. Visit pifers.com to see a complete list of our auctions. When it comes to bidding, go with Pifers. Nobody does it better.
Hey folks, Chris Bair, your host of the Legacy of Agriculture. I'm going solo today on the Legacy of Agriculture, talking about newspaper publications back in the 1950s and some of the interesting articles and advertising that really captured my attention. I want to talk a little bit about some implement manufacturers, advertising, and how similar but how different they really were. And after I read through some of these articles, I'm really, really glad that they have now passed laws in truth in advertising, and you're going to see why. The first ad that I came across that caught my eye and written back in 1956 was an ad about the John Deere diesel Model 70 and Model 80 tractors. If you buy a John Deere 70 or 80, your fuel efficiency and economy record is going to go through the roof. And this is what it says. It says, for the third straight time, a John Deere diesel has set new fuel economy record in official tests at Lincoln, Nebraska. In 1949, it was the Model R. In 1954, the Model 70. Now it's new John Deere Model 80 diesel. None of these records have been equaled by any competitive tractor. Here's convincing proof that you'll turn more of your fuel dollars into profit dollars when you choose a John Deere diesel tractor. The new Model 80 is a powerful 5 to 6 bottom plow tractor that slashes labor costs by greatly increasing daily work output. Power steering, live power shaft, and live hydraulics. Power Troll with 2 remote cylinders are just 3 of the many new features available on the new Model 80. You'll want to see and drive this new fuel economy champion soon. After reading that article, no question, you're going to want to go buy a John Deere 80 tractor. However, it was also kind of interesting. It talks a little bit about power steering. You know, we take for granted power steering in this day and age. Show me something that doesn't have power steering that's produced today. Good grief, even four-wheelers and side-by-sides have power steering, and I don't think anybody would buy a four-wheeler without power steering in this day and age. However, listen to what John Deere said about power steering in 1956. A word about power steering. John Deere power steering is an outstanding feature that offers you new freedom from every steering effort and driver fatigue every minute you're at the wheel. Saves time, ensures better work. It's one of the many features available on the John Deere 70 and 80 diesel models. Good grief, if you're buying a John Deere 70 or John Deere 80 in 1956, you'll definitely want power steering. And then in the corner of this ad, you clip it out with a pair of scissors and you mail in for free literature from John Deere, and it says right on the ad, please send me free literature on, and then a box that says 80 diesels, and then a box that says 70 row crop diesels, and then another box for 70 standard diesels. And it gives your name, your rural route, your box number, your town, and your state. And John Deere would send you literature about the brand new fancy John Deere 70s and John Deere 80s. Just about 5 or 6 pages back of that in 1956, there's a 2-page advertising segment about the new McCormick Farmall torque amplifier, the ruler test. I know, what in the world is a ruler test? And has a picture that if you buy a new Farmall tractor with a TA in it, you can plow, and he's got a picture of a ruler behind a plow in the furrow, measuring about 8 to 10 inches deep. Then the ad below it says, see and feel the difference TA makes. Measure it up in the furrow. TA increases drawbar pull up to 45% to help this Farmall 300 and 3 furrow fast hitch plow hold even more depth in tough plowing. You keep on going nonstop without shallow out or shifting down. So if you buy a Farmall 300 and a 3 bottom plow on your fast hitch, and you have a TA on that tractor, it will increase your plowing efficiencies up to 45%. Very, very interesting. It also talks a little bit on about Farmall in the next page. It says that this basically took a 5-speed transmission and with the torque amplifier made it into a 10-speed transmission, which actually was an excellent idea. But over on the side, another invention by Farmall was the fast hitch. It says fast hitch in seconds, just back, click, and go. You hitch or switch jobs seconds fast. Set fast hitch to hold implements rigid or to let them float for their best work. So there you go. Back in 1956, if you bought a Farmall and you bought it with a fast hitch, those of you that are Farmall lovers know you just back in and go. It also had what they called a Hydra Touch, which was live two-way hydraulics. Now operate up to 3 double-acting hydraulic cylinders, one at a time or all together for most useful big tractor implement control. And then it goes on to talk about the independent PTO on a Farmall tractor. It says independent PTO saves time and crops. It can be stopped or started anytime with tractor moving or standing. Teamed with TA, it gives you separate engine performance at big savings. So there you go. If you buy a Farmall with a TA, with the hydraulic system and a fast hitch, what more could you ever need to your farming operation? On to the next ad that was kind of interesting comes Case. Case 300. It's a refreshingly new from hood to hitch. It's got a daring 3-plow design, dazzling new beauty, and dynamic performance with 12 speeds. Alive with spectacular advantages. And it talks about new high torque engines. You can get them in gasoline, LP gas, distillate, or diesel fuel. Triple range transmission, which is 12 forward speeds, 1.6 to 20 miles an hour, and 3 reverses. Safety lock hydraulic system. A new cam and lever steering for fast acting, short turning, and easily handling. It's got the Eagle hitch. Those of you that are Case collectors, this was about the time that the Eagle hitch came out. 3-point hookup. It stabilizes plowing depth and it's an assist in traction. Easy tell easy, quote unquote, tell easy. Instrument panel with a tachometer, speedometer, hour meter, and 5 other gauges. Constant power takeoff with separate hand lever traction clutch and power shift rear wheel spacing. Ranges 20 inches, hubs and wheels 20 more. So there you go. If you go buy a Case 300, you'd have yourself a heck of a nice tractor. To kind of go on and talk about another article that was really interesting. I'm going to kind of go off the implement side. I've got about a minute and a half here. Is that there was a power company back in the 1950s that were encouraging dairymen to switch to bulk tank milk. I'm going to say it one more time. Dairymen switching to bulk milk tanks. And this power company was offering counseling to help dairymen change over to bulk tank wiring, bulk tank systems, and offering all of the ideas on the wiring and how to handle the wiring so that you could wire in your bulk tanks. I would venture to guess there wasn't a whole lot of inspections back in those days, but it would be really interesting. I'm going to read this article to you because I've got just enough, or I'm going to read part of it. Is Paul Olson, Taylor Falls, Minnesota, is one of the first dairy farmers in the NSP area, which is the electric company, to install a bulk milk tank. Some 3,500 others are expected to join him in the next 3 years. Olson had a 35 cow farm. He switched to bulk milk. The power company helped him come out and do the wiring for the bulk tank, showed him how, and they promised him that if he went to a bulk milk system and used NSP power electricity, that the savings would be up to 50%. So there you go. Switch into bulk tanks. Folks, we're going to be right back with our third segment.
Hi, this is Jasmine at Pfeiffer's Auction, Realty, and Land Management. Pfeiffer's offers multiple ways to bid and buy at our equipment and land auctions. You can bid online, in person, or place pre-bids before the sale even starts. By providing convenient bidding platforms, we make sure that you can buy the items or parcels you want the way you want to. Visit Pfeiffers.com to see a complete list of our auctions. When it comes to bidding, go with Pfeiffers. Nobody does it better.
Good morning, everybody. Chris Bair, your host of the Legacy of Agriculture. I'm back in the third segment of the Legacy of Agriculture. Spring planting is now done, and spraying season has started, and the crops here in northeastern Nebraska, western Iowa, and eastern South Dakota look absolutely phenomenal. The corn is growing like crazy. The beans are doing good. Alfalfa is doing great. It's good to be a part of this community in the upper Midwest. Agriculture is vibrant and is doing good. We appreciate you for joining us. Today I'm going solo on the show. I don't have a guest on today, and I'm going through some old publications that I found to be very, very interesting. In the first and second segments, we had talked about some implements. We'd talked about all kinds of things, but I got back into the classified of this. The Farmer is the name of the publication, January 21st of 1956. And there's some really interesting classified ads that I want to talk to you about. Ever been out in the field and had a flat tire on a tractor in 1956? Well, here's a solution according to G.H. Miser and Company out of Chicago, Illinois. If you buy this tire pump, you can air up your tire. So here it goes. It says, pump up tires the easy way with engine powered. Guaranteed 2 years. Pumps cool, clean air. The engine air, tire pump, and gauge ends tire pumping problems forever. Pumps only cool, clean air at pressures up to 105 pounds. Comes complete with gauge and 16 feet of long-lasting flexible hose. Guaranteed not to harm engine, millions in use. So this is how it works. It's for all cars, trucks, and tractors. Here's what you do. You remove a spark plug out of the head on your engine, and you screw the pump into the opening. You start the engine, let it idle, attach hose to tire valve, and read the dependable gauge. Pump fills tire quickly and easy. So it actually pumps up the compression of the cylinder in your tractor. What could go wrong with that? Like I said, I get a kick out of these newspapers because of the advertising and the interesting things that were invented. And then right below it caught my eye. And this is a manufacturer called Hydroflex Incorporated on 12 Front Street in Claremont, Minnesota. Here is a Hydroflex hydraulic chainsaw. What could possibly go wrong with a hydraulic driven chainsaw? It says, smooth, lightweight unit, has 12 horsepower cutting capacity, safely trims, fells, bucks, converts to post hole digger or universal power drive, fits all tractors, thousands in use, money back guarantee. So if you hook up a chainsaw to the hydraulics of your tractor, you would have up to 12 horsepower. And again, who wouldn't want to drive heavy hydraulic hoses around off the back of a tractor to saw up your wood or cut a tree down? So it's very, very interesting. I go on back to a feed ad, and this is actually from Land O'Lakes. It's a pig milk replacer, and it says pigs gain 1 pound on only 1.5 pounds of feed. Switch pigs at 10 pounds to pre-creep 10-20 and watch them grow fast. You can make a profit with pork this year, but you'll have to feed for the fastest, most economical gains, the kind of gains you get with Land O'Lakes pre-creep 10-20. Just 1.5 pounds of pre-creep 10-20 give you 1 pound of gain. Fast gains during the critical 10 to 30 pound period. The fast gains from 10 pounds on means they'll switch earlier to our lower priced pig starters earlier in rations built with your own corn. When you feed Land O'Lakes Preteen 1020, you can market your sows early without the costly reconditioning period, or rebreed them if you like. You'll save labor because you can group litters, raise more pigs without caring for nursing pigs and lactating sows. Save housing too. Feed Land O'Lakes Pre-Creep 1020 and make a profit with pork this year. So there you go, all of you pork producers out there. Back in 1956, if you had used they need to make that an auctioneer tongue twister, Pre-Creep 1020 feeders. The other thing that was really interesting that was in this, it just gave the title of the article is called The Outlook at a Glance. It says prices and a 5-year drop in farm price levels may be near. So evidently in 1956, they're in a little bit of a slump. Hogs price trend will be irregularly upward. So they were looking at irregularly upward hog prices. I'm not really sure that flows real well in the sentence. It says wheat, size of loan entries, and new crop prospect will govern later price trend. So in other words, they probably didn't even really know. Feed grain. Feed grain says further price rise in near future will be small, which is good news back in 1956. Soybeans, heavy crushings have run ahead of demand for products. Flaxseed prices not likely to rise much over early January level. Seeds, proposed farm program change would increase spring demand. I'm not really sure how that works together. Dairy products. Fluid milk price may drop 10 to 12% by May is probable. Eggs. Early chick purchases are likely to be the most profitable. Chickens. Increase in broiler crop will hold prices well under a year ago. Turkeys, large production of poults in the prospect, and potatoes. Price trends will depend greatly on January 1st stock report. So there you go. There's some market reports in January of 1956. Very, very interesting reading here. Hey, folks, I want to give a shout out before we get into the fourth and final segment of the Legacy of Agriculture. I'm going to switch over to a new newspaper here, but for a complete listing of all the items that Pifer is going to be selling into the summer of 2025, both on the land and the machinery side, you'll want to go to our website at pifers.com. That's PIFERS.com, or simply give us a call at our Sioux Falls facility at 605-836-2277. Don't forget, Monday morning, June 16th, 10 o'clock, we're going to be selling a beautiful line of machinery right out of our Sioux Falls facilities. Complete listing, go to our website. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Jasmine at Pifer's Auction, Realty, and Land Management. Pifer's offers multiple ways to bid and buy at our equipment and land auctions. You can bid online, in person, or place pre-bids before the sale even starts. By providing convenient bidding platforms, we make sure that you can buy the items or parcels you want the way you want to. Visit pifers.com to see a complete list of our auctions. When it comes to bidding, go with Pifers. Nobody does it better.
Hey folks, Chris Bair, your host of the Legacy of Agriculture. This is our fourth and final segment talking about publications in the 1900s, talking about farm events, advertising, marketing, and all kinds of interesting stuff. So in our first three segments, I took material out of a publication called The Farmer, produced in 1956, and I want to jump to 1971. The same paper called The Farmer for the North and South Dakota edition. This one was produced in 1971, and I laughed when I read this article this advertising because it was great. It's about Chevy trucks, and no argument has taken place over a longer period of time than Chevy versus Ford versus Dodge, and which is better, faster, more powerful, lasts longer, and how many more miles can you put on one than the other. But if you read this article that was put out by Chevrolet Trucks, I can guarantee you would have a hard time buying any other product than a Chevrolet. 1971, here we are. It says more than 55% of the 1956 Chevrolet trucks are on the job, as shown in the chart below. And I'll talk a little bit about the chart. No other make has as many as half of its 15-year-old trucks still working. I have no idea how Chevrolet in 1971 had determined what percentage of trucks built in 1956 were on the road, but evidently they had a formula. And considering all year models, no other manufacturer can match the consistently high percentage of Chevrolets still working. Those are the facts. Back of them are the tougher trucks Chevrolet builds. Pickups and double wall steel in cabs and boxes, light duty model with super suspension, easier on truck, driver, and load. Muscular mediums with standard features like a bigger V8 and a stronger front axle. In today's day and age, I doubt that you'll ever find an article written by Chevrolet saying muscular mediums with standard features like a bigger V8 and stronger front axle. You'll pay extra for them than most other makes. They put that in parentheses. You'll pay more, but you're going to get it. These are the toughest Chevrolets yet. So check out a totally tougher 71 Chevy truck at your dealers now. Get a truck that's got a real future. Then they were saying that back in the trucks built in 1967. Okay, so this is a 1971 publication. It said that tough Chevrolet medium and heavy duty trucks built in 1967, that there was still 97.7% of those trucks still on the road and still working. So there you go. During 1971, they also said that the 1956 models, that there's 55.7% of those trucks that were still on the road in 1971. How could you not want to buy a Chevrolet truck with those kind of statistics? It's just plain and simple. But another article that was very interesting back in the early 70s, International just coming out with their new 66 series tractors. This was a new generation of tractors. They were excellent tractors. Those of you that have owned International and Farmall tractors know that International tractors built in the early 60s or early 70s, I would say, were just basically bulletproof. But what I got a kick out of, and this is the muscle tractor era. Jeff Polk and I talked about this a number of times in previous shows. This was the muscle tractor. Pour the fuel to it, hook up your implements or your chopper or any PTO application, and you got all of the power you could ever want in a tractor. But what was really interesting is that International came out advertising this as the International 1466 turbo tractor uses new smokeless diesel engine. This is 1971. I don't think they were completely smokeless, but if you've ever been around an International engine, they were pretty clean burning engines for the most part. But right below it says International introduces pollution-free diesels. I would like to know what their definition of pollution-free engines were in 1971. I don't think there was such a thing as pollution-free, but this is how they were marketing it. I think I'm just going to kind of graze through this article and read it out loud. It says International Harvester Company has introduced 9 new tractors, including pollution-free diesel engines, a controlled environment safety cab, and other new features to make tractor operators safer, easier, and more enjoyable. Heading the IH line of Series 66 tractors is the 133 PTO horsepower International 1466 turbo tractor with the all-new 436 cubic inch 6-cylinder diesel injection turbo diesel engine. Equipped with hydrostatic power steering and 1466 has easy shift 8 4-speed transmission, 16.8 with optional torque amplifier, hydraulically adjusted seat, power disc brakes, and dial gauges instead of warning lights to keep the operator informed on tractor function. All dials and shift levers are illuminated by indirect light. The engine cannot be started unless the clutch is depressed. So, here we go. This is the very kind of the beginning of safety with tractors. It's the International had a safety switch on the clutch. You had to have the clutch pushed in to start it. It goes on to say the new line of IH tractors equipped with smoke-free diesel engines designed to meet a growing need for a wider range of power, but with less noise and smoke. It just goes on to talk more and more about how pollution-free, how smokeless these engines are. And then it goes on into something that's a little bit interesting. It says, noise and sound creating vibrations have been reduced to a minimum by isolating the cab from the tractor chassis with rubber ISO mounts, is what they're calling. They're calling ISO mounts. This new International Deluxe protective frame cab eliminates noise, heat, cold, dust, vibrations, visibility limitations, and fatigue. An air pressurizer with an improved recleaning filter freshens the air, removes dust and pollen. Servicing the internal gear housing is easier. The cab tilts backwards. Other new IH tractor features include a 16% stronger front axle, easier steering, better lighting all around, better instrument cluster, more horsepower, less smoke, and more pollution-free. So there you go. There's your International tractor in 1971. A very interesting article and a very interesting read. Folks, this wraps up our fourth and final segment of the Legacy of Agriculture. We appreciate you for joining us. Join us on Apple, Spotify, and now on YouTube. We appreciate you joining us here on the Legacy of Agriculture. We'll be right back next week.
In it here now, I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna been on here now, who bid $500,000 bid.
We hope you've enjoyed today's edition of The Legacy of Agriculture with Chris Bair, sponsored by Pfeiffer's Auction, Realty, and Land Management. Call Pfeiffer's at 605-836-2277.